Today we've got questions on King Leopold, Rosicrucianism, Charles's favorite pope, and what are the 3 biggest challenges in the church in the next 20 years? Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu, now being broadcast and podcast on the Crusade Channel. Talk radio the way it should be at crusadechannel.com. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a festive Charles Coulombe.
Festive? You mean because we're coming up to Christmas and the 12 days and the beginning of the season that takes us to Candlemas, and beyond that, Mardi Gras?
Yes.
You think, just think of all the joy and hilarity that's awaiting us.
I'm excited.
I am too. I think it's wonderful. I love this time of year.
I'm gonna go hard this Christmas Eve. I'm gonna try to do the Feast of the 7 Fishes for Christmas Eve. No carp. No carp. I know what you're all thinking. No carp.
No carp.
This is an Italian celebration. And I'm not eating a carp, and I'm not putting a carp in a bathtub. I don't care what anyone says.
All right. Well, how about a school of anchovies in the bathtub?
That's gross. I don't eat anchovies. Have you ever eaten anchovies, Charles?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Have you?
Good. Yeah, in Caesar salad and things like that.
That's gross.
What? All right, fine. How about trout? Trout in the bathtub.
Oh. Well, that I'm more amenable to. Actually, a lot more amenable to. I would do that, actually. Trout are tasty too. But what are you looking up?
Well, believe it or not, I'm looking up, of all things, I know you're going to find this difficult to believe, I looked up nothing more, nothing less than a thing on King Leopold of the Belgians.
Oh yeah, you're jumping the gun on this one. This is unusual.
Well, it's unusual because, it looks like there's been a bit of higgledy-piggledy online.
What is that code for?
It's code for the I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
What?
You know what? I'm going to save this, but we're going to get. Let me just see one thing. We are. I cannot believe this.
Charles, what's going on?
All right. Well, there was a great article. There was a great article called King Hochschild's Hoax, which was a takeoff on King Leopold's ghost, which is the major what's the word, book in recent years attacking Leopold II. It was a brilliant article, and now it has vanished. It vanished from the blog of the guy who wrote it.
If you have it bookmarked or know the URL, you could always take the Wayback Machine.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, and we'll see what happens.
All right, so we're going to get to that later.
We will. But in the meantime, since I'm being festive, and since we're entering into this wonderfully festive season, I want to share something with our audience that one of my classmates here, one Emmanuel Teng, came up with.
Okay.
Are you ready? Can you dig it?
Yeah.
He came up with a phrase that reduced me to tears. I laughed so hard. And then I had an immediate thought in response. The phrase was, play stupid games. win stupid prizes.
Yeah, you've said this in the pre-show, and it's the year. It's the best quote of the year for me. What was that in context to?
You know, there wasn't any.
What?
There wasn't any context at all.
How
No,
could
no.
that be?
Well, we were just sitting around talking about nothing in particular, and he suddenly came up with it, and threw it out there, and I lost it.
Yeah.
And then my response, and it was his turn to laugh. My response was, "You mean like voting? Play a stupid game, win a stupid prize."
Yeah, watch the pre-show, everyone, and you'll get my initial reaction to that. I kind of lost it too.
Well, it happened earlier today, and I have to say, I was gone. I was really, really gone. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Well, it's so you. As I said on the pre-show, I picture you like some game show host where you got this goofy, over-the-top smile on your face, and you're not judging it. This is just like your game show, and on the game show is, yeah, we're gonna play stupid games, and you win stupid prizes, and everything's great. It's like this game show of madness where everyone's doing these crazy, insane things, but you know what? It's normal and it all makes sense.
Well, you've all done your best with playing croquet with broken mallets, and here you get your leaky fish aquarium. Well, stupid prizes for stupid games. And as I say, it suggests voting to me. A stupid prize after you vote. You get the winner. Lucky you.
Well, you know what I'm thinking? I'm just fleshing out sort of my imagination a little bit more, and I'm wondering if the people. So we know what you would be like on this game show. I have a good image of that. I'm wondering what the people would be like. I'm kind of picturing The Price is Right. I don't know if you've ever watched The Price is Right, but the people are sort of this over-the-top excitement, enthusiasm where it's truly unbelievable. I wonder if they would also be like that. Like, leaky aquarium, wow. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thanks, Charles. You're welcome. And now for our next stupid game. Who can balance the most raw eggs on the top of their heads?
Man.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, people often say this show is moronic and degrading. But none of the people who win our great prizes complain.
Oh, man.
I got this important Mongolian dirt. I would never have been able to get it on my own. I'm so happy I played.
Yeah, that's. There's a metaphor there. There's definitely a metaphor there. I mean, with elections, definitely. Like, oh wow, we got
another one of the best.
All right. So what's new? What's going on? Anything of note? You're back in Austria. You've left us because you don't like us, and now.
No, that's not it. That's not it.
Okay.
No, it's just that the streets are very dirty. The winter is my coat is very thin. I've got a little pocket to put a penny in. If you had a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you have a halfpenny, God bless you.
Very nice. Very nice.
One for Peter, two for Paul, one for him who made us all. Soul cake, soul cake. Please, good master, a soul cake. A plum, a cherry, any old thing that will make us all merry.
What is that from? Is that 19th century England?
Well, or pre, but yeah. It was souling. It's not really. It's, Peter, Paul, and Mary, your favorites, turned into a sort of Christmas carol when there's nothing to do with Christmas.
It's nothing. It has nothing to do with Christmas.
No, it's got to do with Halloween. It's with souling.
Well, it's kind of hard to tell with sometimes because I remember when you were dropping some knowledge about one of the songs, the Christmas songs that has the lyric "We'll tell scary ghost stories."
Well,
Right?
but that's a whole other context. I mean, the Soul Cake song is an actual folk song, but the Most Wonderful Time of the Year is a made up 20th century non-religious Christmas song. Do you know what the first and most popular non-religious Christmas song was?
Wow. I feel like this is going to be obvious. It's going to be kind of an aha moment.
Uh-huh.
So the first?
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the poem "Twas the Night So wait, so it's not about Christmas or non-religious?
It's about Christmas, but it doesn't have anything religious in it. And even the night before Christmas mentions St. Nicholas.
Oh, does it? Okay, because I was going to say the poem.
No, it's actually entitled "A Visit from St. Nicholas."
Is that the answer, or are you saying that's the poem's real name?
The poem doesn't fit.
Oh.
That's not it.
Okay, so what's the song?
White Christmas.
Who initially did it?
Irving Berlin.
Huh.
Who also gave us our first non-religious Easter song, which I also love, as I love White Christmas, so I love In Your Easter Bonnet.
Wow. I don't know if have I heard, is Irving Berlin's version popular?
He wrote it.
I mean in terms of singing it.
Well, he wrote it for Bing Crosby.
Okay, because I obviously was singing Bing Crosby, so yeah. He wrote it and Bing Crosby sang it, and that was the first one.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And then he wrote another song called "Old Lang Syne." He wrote it for New Year's, and every year Irving Berlin would perform with his orchestra at the Waldorf Astoria. That's why they called Irving Berlin Mr. New Year's Eve. Irving Berlin and his Royal New Yorkers would play.
Okay, you're messing with me now.
What? How am I messing with you? Because he used to say his motto was "the hottest music this side of heaven."
Okay, we just were. You are gaslighting me. You are completely 100%. You are just. What the?
The truth, ladies and gentlemen, is on the pre-show, I talked a little bit about Guy Lombardo. He was the one, of course, that made Old Lang Syne famous, which was written by Robert Burns, and Guy Lombardo called his music the sweetest music this side of heaven. If you think of it, the hottest music this side of heaven really doesn't make a lot of sense. Irving Berlin and his Royal New Yorkers.
All right. So you've had your fun. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Christmas is coming. The geese are getting fat. Please to put a penny in the old man's hat. If you had a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you had a penny, God bless you. But wait, there's more.
Okay.
Frosty the Snowman.
Yes.
Are you curious as to the village he was in? You know, down through the village, da 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 da.
Okay, I'm sure. I'm curious about the village. Yeah, go on.
Armonk, New York.
How can you know that?
I can know it because, catch this, ladies and gentlemen, this is from Wikipedia, source of all knowledge. You look up Frosty the Snowman, was live as he could be.
Who initially wrote
Got
that
it?
song?
Walter Jack Rollins and Steve Nelson, and first recorded by Gene Autry and the Cass County Boys in 1950, and later recorded by Jimmy Durante later that year. But the words, let me see. Oh, Guy Lombardo covered it. There you go. But Frosty the Snowman, as I understand it, the authors said it in Armonk, New York. Armonk Frosty Day. See? About Frosty history. Here we go. Well, it gives the lyrics. You can look this up at armonkfrosty.com. Grandpa Rollins, Patty, who is the co-author, said that it was said in Armonk. And every year in Armonk, they have the Frosty the Snowman Day. And a man dressed as Frosty roams around town. Yeah, it's November 26th was when they had it this year. And they have a parade and his homecoming and all that. So there you go.
Did you know? I'm just kind of like fact checking you a little bit on some of these things. So I looked up "White Christmas" by Bing Crosby. So that's 1942. It was released.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprisingly late for the first sort of non-religious Christmas song.
Yeah.
But it is what Wikipedia says in multiple places. It's hard to believe, but it's the world's best-selling single.
I can believe that.
It's got, in terms of physical copies, it's, I guess it's sold 50 million.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of random songs after that, kind of random, but I'm just kind of shocked at that. Wow. Anyhow, so "White Christmas" by Bing Crosby. That's where it's at. All right. How about book of the week, Charles?
Book of the week. Are you ready? Can you dig it?
Yeah.
Father Francis X. Weiser. Francis X. Weiser wrote a book called The Christmas Book. And it's all about, you guessed it, the varying customs around the Christian world celebrating Christmas. And Father Francis Weiser was an important character because he was if you remember the Von Trapp family from Sound of Music, he was their chaplain in Austria and actually came with them to the United States. He was a Jesuit, and he ended up being appointed the pastor of the now, alas, defunct Holy Trinity Church in Boston. But it's a good it's a great book. The Christmas book, you can get it online. There've been several editions, but I recommend it highly. Christmas Book by Father Francis X. Weiser.
All right. All right, questions. Let's go straight into the question you're hot on. John says, what are Charles' thoughts on King Leopold II and the book King Leopold's Ghost?
Ooh. Well, I recommend highly, and there'll be a link to it, an article called King Hochschild's Hoax, which is a shredding of King Leopold's Ghost. But what's interesting is that in looking for the article again for this evening, I found it had vanished from both the places where I saw it. I had to get it out of
The Wayback Machine.
that's the one, the Wayback Machine. And having done so, you'll see it's a very damning piece. There's a new book out by a gentleman called Jean-Pierre Nzeza Kabu's ex-Congo, in which he calls King Leopold II the greatest ruler the Congo ever had, and that's quite amazing.
So, I mean, let's start at the beginning.
All right.
Right. What are King? I mean, what's King Leopold's legacy that where there's this sort of contention, this controversy over?
Well, basically, it's like this. By the late 1880s, most of the territories around what is now the Congo had been taken over by the British, the French, the Germans, or the Portuguese. But this huge area of Central Africa, which would become the Congo, was basically ungoverned. I mean, they had tribes, they had all sorts of slavers coming from Zanzibar to steal them and take them off to various places. Muslim slave traders, of course. So we're not against them. So remember, slavery is only bad when it's done by Europeans. When it's done by third world people against other third world people, we don't mind. Because we're, what's the word? Oh, filthy hypocrites. Yeah, that's the word. So, as filthy hypocrites, we didn't have a real problem with that. But the dead white European males of the mid 19th century did. So the anti-slavery convention in Berlin gathered and said, all right, we have this huge piece of territory in the center of Africa. How do we give it an effective government that will repel the slave traders? Well, they came up with the bright idea of giving it to King Leopold II of Belgium, whose country had no colonial aspirations because it was so small. So they did. But now King Leopold was faced with a terrible thing because he had this huge territory, the Congo Free State, to govern. And he had no money, no means with which to do it. Well, how do you govern on the cheap? Well, one way to do it is to award lands to people who exploit them and pay you taxes. Well, that's what he did. But a lot of these people were very unscrupulous and took tremendous advantage of the natives. And then the British and various other people began to spread really terrible propaganda about him. So he was really between a rock and a hard place in the sense that in order to keep any kind of order there at all, he had to run a pretty nasty regime. But these neighboring countries who were quick to condemn him would have happily eaten up the Congo in a second if they could have had the chance. So it was a very, very bad position to be in. And finally, in 1908, the Belgian government, although it had no real desire to go into it, nevertheless intervened, took over the Congo. And it became the Belgian Congo, which it wasn't until 1959 when it was made independent. And it's had a terrible history since. But I think Leopold's, the continual attacks on Leopold are very unfounded and very unjust. And I would definitely read King Hochschild's hoax for a better feeling of what I'm saying.
Okay. Who is Charles's favorite pope and why?
Pius IX, because he fought to keep the Papal States papal.
That's it?
Yeah, that's enough. Well, he fought liberal Catholicism, or liberalism in general, throughout Europe and into Latin America. He was quite the man, and I really like him.
Can we do a little bit more of a character portrait? I thought you had explained one time that there was this. I thought you said he was liberal, but then
Yeah,
he witnessed something, and then
yeah,
that changed everything.
yeah. In 1846, he was elected, and he was considered a liberal, and he pardoned all the political prisoners in the papal jails and so forth, which did him no good at all. 2 years later, they had the revolution, and his prime minister, De Rossi, was shot in front of him. So that really turned him off on the liberals. And for as long as he could, he fought to keep the papal states. First, when they were initially attacked in 1860, then all the way down to 1870, and then he withdrew into the Vatican and became the prisoner of the Vatican, so called. And now he's a blessed. The thing is that Blessed Pius IX uh, had a good understanding eventually of where the church stood in relation to the liberal powers of the day, and where it stood was in bad shape. And it remains that way even today, even if it's hard for some people to catch on to it.
Um, I have such a positive impression of the popes of the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
What century in the history of the church do you think we had the strongest popes?
Well, see, that would be the telling. The 19th, usually we've gotten strong popes in response to something terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
So, in the immediate wake of the pornocracy, all through the 11th century, the 1000s, we had very strong popes.
Yeah.
Same was true immediately after the Great Schism. The same was true after the Protestant Revolt. We first Trent and then other things. We had one really strong prelate after another as pope, so it varied.
Well, that's kind of a cool sign. That's kind of almost a little hopeful sign there, because obviously we have the Christ of modernism, always... so that's almost like a precursor. That it's like after this crisis, we get a good pope, and we sort of patch things, and he patches things up, and then we move on to other problems that arise.
To other catastrophes,
and then other catastrophes that were previously undreamed of.
And that will probably be more external. But I mean, that's what impressed me while I was writing the history of the popes, was just the jumping from one catastrophe to the next.
Yeah.
And then you do it initially country by country, but the scope grows. So.
Yeah, well, going through, if you read not Puritan's Empire, Vicars of Christ as a book, that's sort of kind of what stands out to me, is sort of, you see the church in eras, where this is this lingering problem. It keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. Okay, end of that era, now new problem, new crisis.
Very true, sadly.
Yeah. So, all right. Estonia and Czechia Republic are the most atheistic countries in the world. Could Charles provide us some insight into why that is?
Well, yes, I could. It's because, for very different reasons, religion, especially devout religion, became associated in the popular mind of many with the enemies of their nationality. So with the Czechs, especially those Czechs who opposed the Habsburgs, they associated the Catholic faith with the Habsburgs. In Estonia, the Estonians have been colonized by the Teutonic Knights, and so they had a great many German speakers who really ran the area. But for a while, under the Swedish Ages. So what happened was that the Lutheran Church in Estonia, which was imposed by the Swedes, basically became very weak. Um, and it's only been in the past few years that Estonia has really pulled itself up somewhat from the atheism. But it's still in a very bad way, as is Czechia. Although the Czechs have shown some small signs of pulling themselves together, the rebuilding of the Marian column in downtown Prague in 2020 was amazing.
All right. How would one convert a New Ager or a person who is spiritual but not religious?
Well, I guess, it's really, I mean, it's not how or whether, it's more because, you know what I'm saying?
Is that the way? Is that the way you treat? Oh, no.
No. What you have to do with them basically is first identify what it is they want. When you say you're spiritual, not religious, what are you talking about? Now, that could mean many things. It could mean you're a lazy moron, or it could mean that you want to approach God directly without going through the medium of some human being, which is a nice idea, even if not possible in real life. So the first thing you got to do is identify where they're coming from, quite literally, and then identify the Catholic arguments against it. Because remember, when we say New Age, that's a huge thing. So you've got to figure out what that particular couple or individual's real approach is to the New Age. And then it becomes somewhat more clear.
Yeah, I heard something really interesting. I wish I could remember where I got it from. Everything's sort of blending together. I've been reading so much spiritual books, whether it's, I don't know if it was Fulton Sheen or Father Ripperger, or I don't know anymore. But I heard such an interesting notion, which is sort of the correlation between a person's responsibility level and their happiness. And sort of the implication kind of is, if you have no responsibility, if you're not putting responsibility on yourself, then you can't be happy, because people want responsibility. Even though the problem is, obviously, with responsibility, you have duties and you need to do things. So that's kind of baked into, I would say, the spiritual but not religious thing, because spiritual, there's no implication of responsibilities. You're just sort of this free-floating thing, right? But religious, suddenly, now you've put responsibility on yourself. And you say, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to live by. And so I think on that basis, I think that's even like, that's more fulfilling, that's happier. And I think that's actually, if you approach it from that, I think people might not be turned off. I think you might grab their ear, because they're going to recognize the truth in that. You know? Because I feel like so much of society, especially with young people, there's sort of this rebellion. I feel like everybody knows something is hugely wrong, where everyone's on the internet all the time. There's this digital world, and it's sort of not real living. They're immersed in it. They're trapped in it. They don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to adopt. They don't know how to overcome their vices. They don't know how to overcome their impulses. But they want to. And so I think that's sort of the language I feel like Catholics. I feel like Catholics need to address this. Young Catholics.
Well, no, I agree. I think that people, especially young people, are living too much in games and not in the real world.
Yeah. So, okay, what is Rosicrucianism and what are its origins?
Oh, oh. Well, basically, in the 1600s, well, first and foremost, Martin Luther's symbol was the rose on a cross. And in, I think, 1619, supposedly a forgery by a Lutheran minister named Valentin Andrea went throughout Europe, and it purported to be the discussion of a secret society of mystics, the Rosicrucians, whose origins allegedly went back to one Christian Rosenkreuz, who in 1489 went to the Holy Land and established this secret society dedicated to the studying of spirituality and ancient wisdom and blah blah blah. Uh, it was not it was not a real thing, really. It was kind of a fiction. But all over Europe, people interested in the occult, science, or both, started Rosicrucian groups. And it was interesting, by the 18th century, there was sort of a long running feud between Freemasonic lodges and Rosicrucian lodges, some of which have been founded by an Austrian Jesuit, a Bavarian Jesuit, as a way of combating Masonic influence. After the after the Napoleonic Wars, that order, the Rose and Golden Kreuz, vanished. But the notion of Rosicrucianism survived. Uh, Groups like the Order of the Golden Dawn that started in England claimed to be connected to Rosicrucianism. You had, in the late 20th century, several groups arise that call themselves Rosicrucian. One set were Masonic. The Societas Rosicruciana in Agers in England, the United States, etc. And then there was another group in San Jose, California, Amorc, and they have a big museum of Egyptian artwork and so on up there in San Jose. And when I was a kid, they would take out ads in all of the major magazines. And they'd have, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, L. Sprague de Free. What did these great men have in common? They were Rosicrucians. And so the Rosicrucians have claimed a lot of the great names of the past as members. Again, to maybe pull the stuffing a little bit out of the whole thing. We had a number of other groups call themselves Rosicrucian with no connection to each other. One of them in northern San Diego County, Mount Ecclesia, the Rosicrucian Fellowship, I actually have been to. I saw it. I gawked at it with my own eyes. So, if you take the groups that all call themselves Rosicrucian together today, you'll find very little agreement on what Rosicrucianism is, but they all trace themselves to that book by Valentin Andrea.
So, I wasn't able to follow that entire history because it seemed very non-linear. So,
it is very non-linear. It's not. There has not really been a real central Rosicrucian organization. People have adapted the name and just put it on there.
But I mean, even very basic things, I wasn't quite able to pick up. Like, so you started off and you said, so Martin Luther's symbol was the rose on the cross. So
right, And Valentin André was who wrote the first Rosicrucian book, was a Lutheran minister.
Oh, so he was Lutheran. Okay.
And so one of the uses of the Rosicrucian mythos, despite it later being used by some Catholics, was in fact to combat Catholicism.
So in his book, I mean, you said a Rosicrucian book. What does that mean? What did he say in that book?
Well, it tells the story of a supposed Catholic monk called Christian Rosenkreutz, who goes to the Near East and finds a whole lot of wisdom and brings it back.
What? So, I mean, what's the content? Is it Catholic wisdom? Like, what type of wisdom? Like, are we talking like?
Well, see, he didn't say because it was supposed to be secret. And so basically what all the succeeding Rosicrucian groups claim is that they have that secret wisdom, but it varies so much from one group to the next that, it often involves reincarnation, but not always. It's a hodgepodge.
And so, wait, so was that a fiction story or a proposed real life story?
Well, both, in the sense that Christian Rosenkreutz was probably a fictional character, but
it's not explicitly stated. The intent of the work is not explicitly stated.
No, it's not. So I'm thinking that. So the thing about Rosicrucianism, the thing about Rosicrucianism is not that it has a unified body of doctrine, because it doesn't, and not even that it's necessarily a real organization, because it may not be. Basically, there was a period in the 16th, 17th, 18th, into the 19th centuries when Rosicrucianism was a little bit like democracy, and that a lot of very different people wanted to claim it for themselves and gave very different meanings to the word.
Okay. Huh.
I mean, if you try to look into all the different Rosicrucian groups, or groups that call themselves Rosicrucian, and try to come up with some sort of unified or organized thing out of it, believe me, you won't.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do and failing.
No, you will fail, because you can't. It's just, and of course, every member of every Rosicrucian group is absolutely convinced that his group is the real one.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like, I mean, Satan's written all over this, the father of lies, right? Like, you can't tell what's true and what's not, and it's just a bunch of different rabbit holes where you can't tell what's going on anywhere. Okay.
And why should you?
All right. Play stupid games with stupid prizes.
Play stupid games and stupid prizes. You could become the Rosicrucian blockchain from your of your own home. I mean, did Ambrose Bierce write anything about them in the Devil's Dictionary?
The Devil's Dictionary?
Yeah.
I feel like you've alluded to that on the show before.
I sure have.
What is that about?
It's not about anything. It's a very cynical, a very cynical and funny, a very book. Yeah, here's the famous passage. Freemasons, noun, an order with secret rites, grotesque ceremonies, and fantastic costumes, which, originating in the reign of Charles II among working artisans of London, has been joined successively by the dead of past centuries in unbroken retrogression, Until now, it embraces all the generations of man on the hither side of Adam and is drumming up distinguished recruits among the pre-creational inhabitants of chaos and the formal and the formless void.
Wow. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good. That looks like a pretty fun book. That dictionary. That was
Ambrose Bierce, The Devil's Dictionary.
1906, published 1906. Wow.
I liked also his definition of conservative. Noun, a statesman who prefers existing evils as opposed to a liberal who would replace them with new ones.
Wow. Yeah, he's... Acquaintance. A person whom we know well enough to borrow from, but not well enough to lend to. A degree of friendship called speaking, when its object is poor or obscure, and intimate when he is rich and famous. Wow,
it's a great book.
That is really awesome.
It's a great book.
I have to write that down. Okay.
The Devil's Dictionary.
It sounds like Ambrose Bierce has an acute understanding of human nature.
Yeah, he definitely did.
All right. Moving on. We have a lot of good questions coming up still. Okay, so
let's get them.
What were some great decisions made by otherwise bad presidents, and some bad decisions made by otherwise great presidents?
Well, the most obvious great decision by a bad president for me was Franklin Roosevelt's decision that every post office in the United States should be built in accordance with the local style, rather than be replaced with garbage. I think that was a great thing he did. General Washington, I think starting the French-Indian War was not a good thing. At least my people didn't turn out too well with it. As far as good presidents who did bad things, I guess Teddy Roosevelt, some of his occupations in the Caribbean, I would say.
Let's get Reagan in there.
Well, Reagan's biggest mistake was in not tackling the judiciary and the media and so on, who, in order to maintain the quote-unquote Reagan Revolution, would have had to have been knocked down to size.
He had one as governor. I thought you said too.
Oh, yes, as governor, he introduced abortion to California. He signed the bill.
Yeah.
He later repented, as they say, but it didn't do the dead any good.
Yeah. And let's go the other direction. So go ahead and say something for Obama.
He's no longer president.
All right. Next question. What are the three biggest challenges in the church in the next 20 years?
Preserving the musical heritage of the immediate post-Vatican II era.
Wait, what? I wasn't fully paying attention. What did you say?
I said preserving the musical heritage of the immediate post-Vatican II era.
Yeah, how do we do that?
Well, I mean, people should be encouraged to use guitars at Mass to make it more attractive to the young people, and play songs like Sons of God, hear His holy word, gather around the table of the Lord, eat His body, drink His blood. And that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the rigidity of so many religious orders. Because see, what's going to happen is that as things continue as they are, uh, more and more elderly people will die off,
That's
leaving the.
generally how it goes.
Well, it's true,
Uh,
but they'll be leaving all of these young uh, traditional people in charge of the religious orders and all that, who will lose the proud heritage of the Vatican II era. And the third is that I think there's a great danger that a future pope will try to undo the current pope's many reforms.
are you doing an impression of someone at the Vatican or something?
The White Vatican. Uh, no, the White Vatican. No, Susan at the parish council. No, seriously, the three biggest things facing the church. First and foremost is regaining of her sense of mission.
What is
Her
that?
leadership, well, the salvation of souls. Her leadership have to regain their belief in her divine mission to save people through the sacraments. That's the first thing. Unless we have that, we have nothing. Uh, then the second uh, question is like in the first, and that is that a new pope will have to try to restore the damage that has been done on the current pontificate in the sheer machinery of the papacy, which is pretty hard. Then there is, of course, the the uh, the third, which is, I mean, as soon as the threats for tradition from the top are gone, I have no doubt it'll pick up and get growing again. I have no doubt at all. Um, but the structure of the church, the structures plural of the church, have to be uh, at the service of the resulting evangelization. They can't be simply about managed decline anymore.
Hmm.
And that's going to require a real change of mindset on the part of some people.
Um, for the second one that you said, repair the damage to. What did you say that you said repair the damage was specifically to the office of the papacy?
Yeah,
You said something. Okay.
to the office, its image. I mean, right now, an awful lot of people, if the Holy Father says something, their immediate response is to turn him off. And that's been because since 2013, he's been giving us a steady barrage of insults and so forth. And so even when he says something decent, you don't want to hear him.
Well, you know what's interesting? What's in my ear is a line from you, which where you say the church is not the mystical body of the Pope; it's the
No,
mystical body of Christ. So, I think to begin, I mean, we had such a dramatic switch in a sense, right? Where we had John Paul, we had Pope Benedict, and you had people. I mean, a totally different attitude switch where it's like the Pope can do no wrong. You know, everything he says is ex cathedra
no.
to this, and I almost got the impression that you felt like it was a correction of sorts, or it's going to help have a more balanced look at the papacy.
I would say that that's true. I would say that, Vatican I established the lengths of papal authority.
Yeah.
But what it was not able to deal with, not least because it was broken up early, with limits. You know, as things stand now, an awful lot of people think that if the Pope says tomorrow we've got to wear our underwear over our faces now, people, well, um, and that's an attitude that will In a sense, this fellow is breaking, but in the worst possible way. He's breaking it by making it absurd. And what we need is for the actual proper teaching to be enunciated. And, maybe we require another ecumenical council. I don't know. I doubt I'll be around for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the other thing I was thinking of, I always think of Father Ripperger's words in this is just, it's with regard to scandal and literature and stuff like that regarding the Vatican, and he's saying you can't let that hurt. What is it? Was it? I thought he said something like filial devotion to the office. Like you have to separate the office from the man, and if that's hurting your view of the papacy in general, that's bad, and you need to get away from it. Is that fair?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I won't mention who, but a leading priest in the Archdiocese of LA, now deceased, said to me that the worst thing I can do for my spiritual health, it is read the Holy Father's writings. He said, just you have the creeds, you know what a Catholic is supposed to believe. Stick with Catholic stuff. Don't worry about it.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. That's all the questions we have.
Well, then that brings us to another issue.
Yes, go on.
The question is this. Why is it that with Christmas coming, you're not wearing a sprig of holly in your hair?
Why don't you wipe the log out of your own eye before you wipe the splinter out of mine, sir?
Okay.
Where's the sprig of holly in your hair? Your graveyard blonde hair.
Give me a minute.
Oh. Oh, here we go. Really? Really?
I don't have any holly, but this bit of pine will have to do.
Is that what people do? Is that the way?
No.
It's like, oh, I'm not being Christmassy unless I put that in my hair.
Well, pretty much you're not. No, that's true. Yeah, no, there. Now I'm Christmassy. I've got Christmas spirit. Yes, I do. I've got Christmas spirit. How about you?
Okay. Absolutely.
There is something else I'm going to tell you. It's like this, and I know since I'm over here right now, people have gotten the wrong impression, so I'm going to correct it. I'll be home for Christmas. You can count on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents under the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. Home for Christmas, if only in my dreams.
All right. So this is no show next week. We hope you guys are having a happy Advent, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.
And I guess there's a chance we'll do a show for New Year's weekend.
Yeah.
And so that means we'll have our New Year's show. You'll play Irving Berlin and his Royal New Yorkers. The hottest music this side of heaven. You'll live from the Hotel Astor in New York.
Pretty strange.
The royal governor himself will let the ball go.
All right, what is it if it's Monday, Charles?
Don't help me. I can do this. Oh, I know. It's off the menu.
What about the soul you save?
It may be your own.
See you next time, everyone.
God bless all. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we shall see you in the new year.